I'm Elizabeth and today I'm here to do a tag video. This is the By the Bet tag that was created by Adrian at StrippedCoverLit, and I was tagged by Marc Nash, and you will of course find links to both of them down below. So the idea of this tag is to talk about yourself and your channel using the alphabet as prompts. And I predict that this video is going to be long enough, so let's just get started. So A for me is quite simply for alphabet, because I have a thing for alphabets. When I was a child I used to make up my own alphabets, leading to me presently having diaries. I can't read because the writing is not legible for me anymore. I've forgotten my own alphabets. But I also like learning about alphabets and about all writing systems, not just alphabets. But I love learning about them, reading about them. In fact, I just finished this book, which is called The Story of Writing, which is all about various kinds of writing, both hieroglyphs, pictograms and alphabets. And yeah, I like letters. What more is there to say? I can fluently read two alphabets. One of them is of course the Latin alphabet, and I can also read Cyrillic because I did Russian in school for 3 years. Sadly, I've forgotten most of the Russian that went with the alphabet. I mean, Здравствуйте, как ваши дела? Это моя чашка. I don't think that will get me very far, but if I'm ever on a road trip in a Cyrillic using country, I will be able to read the road signs. B is for bookshops. I love spending time and money in them. It's my happy place, and lately, the past 2 or 3 years, I tend to arrange my holidays around them. So I go on holiday to places with lots of bookshops, and that's how I spend my holidays. I really should do a holiday where I just bring books and read them instead of buying them, I guess, but oh well. C is for curiosity, which I think is the driving force behind most of my reading. I always want to learn new things, and books is what I turn to make that happen. So that's my, as I said, my main driving force. D is for Doris Lessing, who wrote my favorite book, The Golden Notebook, and if I'm pressed I'm gonna name her my favorite writer as well, even though The Golden Notebook is the only one of her books that I've read and absolutely loved. I have read several more, and I'm trying to collect all of her books and slowly working my way through them, and I have really liked many more of them, and there are some that I decidedly did not like, but I'm still gonna name her my favorite author. E is for eclectic, which is the word I'd use to describe my reading taste. I do read a bit all over the place, and there are times when I think that this is a problem, that I should be specializing in something because that would make me more of an expert, whatever, in that area. But then that's just not how I work. I think I would read way less if I had less varied reading. I think the variation in my reading is what keeps me interested and keeps me wanting to read more things and keep me motivated to seek out new things all the time. So F is for fantasy, which is one of my favorite genres. It has been since childhood. I have Alice in Wonderland on my shirt, together with the TARDIS, but you know, you can mix. And G is related to that and is for grimdark, which is my favorite subgenre of fantasy. If it's dark and gritty and people die east and west, I'm sure I'm gonna like it. H is for history, which is one of my main areas within non-fiction that I like to read about. I also have, I would say I have 3 favorite eras to read about in history. One of them is like ancient history, I mean pre-Greece and Roman, all the cuneiform civilizations, the Mesopotamian, the Hittites and so forth. That's one of my main eras that I like to read about. Then there's the Viking Age, which may not come as a big surprise if you've seen my saga-long videos. And I also like to read about Tudor England, but I will read about any historical periods, but those are the three main ones that I'm drawn to. I is for introvert. I'm sure that's not a big shock to anyone in the bookish community, but whenever I take a personality test, I always score on the maximum side of introversion, which sometimes surprises people that know me because they think I talk a lot. I mean, introverted doesn't necessarily mean you don't talk, and in one-to-one situations that's something completely different. And I mean, at work I need to talk, but the rest of the day I tend to spend all alone at home with no sound and just me, and I'm very happy with that. J is for joining, which is something I've never been very good at, and after I joined BookTube I've been doing a lot more of it, and I have to admit I didn't actually see that coming. I've been on BookTube for about 6 months now, and I've joined Nonfiction November, I joined the Tome Infinity and Beyond read-along, well, readathon, the first one, and I've also joined Sagalong, and I have 2 buddy reads in the making, so it seems I'm becoming a joiner by being on BookTube, so people change. So K is for Kindle. I have one, and you might see it's old. I got this as a present for my 30th birthday, which kind of ages me, I guess, but I don't use it all that much. I am way too fond of paper books, but I do use it from time to time. Either if I'm reading really chunky books, this is a lot easier to carry along on my commute, or if there's something I need to read right this second and I can't wait until I can go to a bookshop, will buy it on Kindle and read it there, which leads to me having not... I think I have a single unread book stored on my Kindle, which does not really match up with my 800 unread books on my actual bookshelves. So L is for language and linguistics. They're kind of related. I love languages. I've always been interested in languages ever since I was a child. I was really happy when I finally got to the point in school where we started learning English, and I kind of just piled on everything language related that I could in school. In high school we get to choose more of our own subjects, so I chose away, or did away with, all of the math related subjects, even though I was doing well in them as well, but I chose only languages. So in high school I did English, French, Spanish and Russian all at the same time, which I won't necessarily recommend because they tend to just mingle together into one big soup of words, but I did okay. And then I've also done a bachelor degree in linguistics, and during that I did 2 short semesters of other languages as well. I did one of Old North and one of Nehiawewin or Cree, which is a Native American language from Canada, I think. For both of those I didn't really learn how to use the language or how to read the language. We just looked at grammatical structures within those languages, which I also find very interesting. Yes, I'm a bit of a geek. M is for memoir, which is another genre I really like reading, and one that I've been increasingly fond of over the past few years, and it seems I especially like reading memoirs written by women. N could be for Norway, which is where I'm from, but I'm gonna say it's for non-fiction, which also make up a big bulk of my reading. I would say about 1/3 of my reading during a year is non-fiction. O is for original, and no, I don't think that I myself am particularly original, nor my videos, but when I say original, it's because I prefer to read my books in the language it was originally written in whenever possible, which means I will read Norwegian books in Norwegian and books written in English in English, and then I can also read books in Swedish and Danish because that's close enough to Norwegian for it to make sense. And then when there are books in other languages than those, which I can't read, including Spanish, French and Russian, though I should be fairly close to being able to read books in French. That should actually be possible if I just pushed myself a little, so I might make that a project for later. But anyways, books in languages that I can't read, I prefer to read in Norwegian translation, just because that feels closer to the original than reading them in English, which again is a foreign language to me, so that feels like just one step further from the original for me. P is for plants. They are fairly prominent in my videos. I've chosen to film here rather than in front of my bookshelves, just because there's more light here. Q is for quiet. I was touching on this when I talked about introversion, but I like to have perfect quiet at home. Well, as quiet as it can be. I mean, there are cars outside and there are people in the building and stuff like that, but I never have the TV on in the background to get sound. I never have the radio on or music on in the background. When I'm at home, it's quiet. R is for rabbit holes. I tend to fall down them, not just on the internet, but also in books. I tend to get really stuck on a subject or a genre or a writer or something else, some sort of topic, and I will read like 4, 5, 6 books that relates to that, and then I'll tire of it and I'll go on to something else, and there's a loop, so I might come back to it at a later point. But yeah, I do tend to read in binges, if you like, or clusters, or rabbit holes. S is for sci-fi, another genre I really like, and one that I've also been increasingly more fond of in the last few years. I've always read more fantasy than sci-fi, but in the last 2-3 years it's been the other way around. So more sci-fi and a bit less fantasy, I guess, but both of them are still very important to me. T is for translation. I'm very fascinated by the act of translation, about what can be translated and what's hard to translate, and that's kind of why I prefer reading books in original where I can, and sometimes I like reading both the original and a translation to compare them and see how they give me a different feeling. It's all part of me being interested in language, obviously. U is for unrealistic TBR, because I buy books at a much higher pace than I'm able to read them, so my physical TBR in my own apartment is ever growing, and I think at the moment I have about 800 unread books on my shelves, and every year that number is growing, not decreasing, and I keep trying to set myself a goal to change that, and it never happens. So far this year I think I'm at plus about 20, but that's just because I went to London and I bought 34 books in a week, and so far I've read 5 of those. But I mean, that was only a few weeks ago, so I'm working on that pile. My aim now is to be at least halfway through that pile before I allow myself to buy another book. But we all know how that's gonna go, don't we? V is for vanity, and in this case that's exemplified by makeup. I always put on makeup before I film, not a lot, but I have like mascara and an eyeliner, and I always wear lipstick. And people that know me in my offline life think this is a bit weird, because they hardly ever see me like this. I don't wear much makeup in my day-to-day life, and certainly not lipstick. But I filmed without lipstick once, I think, and I felt I couldn't see my mouth when I was doing the editing, and I felt that everything I said sounded more like a mumble because it was harder to read on the lips, and that's why I always put on lipstick to film. So it's vanity. I'll live with it. I mean, but it is a bit weird that the only time I actually wear makeup is when I sit in my own living room talking to myself in front of a camera. Who cares? W is for watch list, and I think my YouTube watch list is about as unrealistic as my TBR. I can't keep up. I want to watch every video and there's just not enough time. I want to do my work, my job. I want to make my own videos, and I also want to have time for reading. And that means there's only so much time left to watch other people's videos. But I do try to keep up as much as I can, and I'm trying to be better at leaving traces of me watching it behind, both by liking videos or by commenting. I've been very bad at commenting in the past. I've been watching BookTube for years, but I always didn't want to disturb anyone by leaving comments, and that's just stupid because people like comments if they're nice. So X is for X-Men. I sure wish I had read those comics, then it would have made sense to make use of it for this point. And then Y is for yeah, because that's a word I'm overusing constantly when I talk on this channel. You might not hear as much of it as I do because I am voraciously editing it out when I rewatch my videos, because it seems that after everything I say I finish up with, well, yeah. So, well, yeah, let's move on. And then the last letter is Z, and that's another hard one, but I went with Zeitgeist, which is a German word, and it's the spirit of the time you're living in. And I think that's another thing I like to find in books. I like to read books written at different time periods than my own to learn something about the spirit of that time, or the Zeitgeist. So I guess I should end this by tagging someone. And I feel like I'm always tagging the same people, so I'm trying to come up with someone I haven't tagged before. I'm not sure if you're doing tags, I'm not sure if you have been tagged in this already because it's been going around a bit, but here it goes. I want to tag Ulla Gudnason, I want to tag Lukács from Totally Pretentious, I want to tag Alex Black and Nikki from I Read Past My Bedtime. And I think that was all for today, and I hope you're all having a lovely day, and I will see you next time in a new video. Bye bye.